and Duckett Debate Podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. That is obviously not Nick Duckett. That is Austin Jensen, as you can see, wearing his Chicago Cubs gear with pride.
Fly the dub, baby.
Is going to be about the Chicago Cubs. So, Austin, first off, how you doing, man?
Doing all right, Dorton. How about you, man?
Not too bad. I always like to talk baseball with you, especially Cubs and Rockies. You know, got some back and forth there for sure.
For one specific reason, and it's Arenado versus Bryant.
Well, and that we beat you in the wild card game too.
Easy now, Puff Daddy, easy. Living in the past, I see.
Well, you got to. There's not a whole lot.
I can't be too much of a hypocrite. We're still honoring 2016, so that's been about the only thing really worth really talking about ever since then. So
fair. So first off, maybe give some of the people your background, your baseball background, kind of where you got started playing, position, just all that fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. I currently play at Dort's alma mater, Bethany Lutheran College. I'm a junior, and him and I have been friends since freshman year. He was our student manager in the duration I've been on the team. So, yeah, I've been playing baseball since I was 6. Started out in coach pitch, got introduced to the game with my dad. My first Cubs game was in April 06. I saw one of the greatest players to ever play, Ken Griffey Jr., hit 2 home runs, and I fell in love with the game ever since. And yeah, I've been a Cubs fan pretty much my whole life.
That's awesome. So how did you become a Cubs fan? What was like the moment that you're like, yeah, I'm a Cubs fan?
Well, first of all, it's now when they started getting good, because I know that's the stereotype people like to live off of. It was just kind of just sitting next to my dad growing up as a little kid watching Cubs games, because where I'm from in Wisconsin, we're like on the border of Wisconsin and Illinois. So it was like, so we got all the Cubs games. So, and just started loving Cubs games, loved watching Derek Lee, Ramos Ramirez, Giovanni Soto and all them growing up as a kid. And it's started coming in now with Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant and company.
Heck yeah. Well, that's a solid story. I know you're not a bandwagon fan, regardless of what everyone else says.
Oh yeah. See, you keep it real, unlike a lot of people. So that's why I still love you, Dort.
Oh, well, I appreciate it.
Best student manager ever graced God's green earth.
Yeah, you know, I don't like to toot my own horn, but I'll toot that every once in a while.
Oh, you should always do.
Well, you ready to get this thing going or what?
Oh yeah, man, I'm ready. I'm ready to dissect this awful offseason.
Well, let's do it. So we'll start with last season first. The Cubs finished 84-78 in third place in their division. They've kind of taken some steps back since they won the World Series in 2016. What was some reasonings behind that? Like why they've just gradually kind of gotten further and further away from that?
I'm going to be one of the very few people that it probably will say, like everyone in the media and on Facebooks and Twitter and whatnot will say, oh, it's because of Joe Madden. It's because of Joe Madden. I think personally Joe Madden was the absolute last reason why the Cubs fell off the way they did. Because at the end of the day, Joe Madden's not one of the 9 guys in the field. And I think a lot of it had to do with just underperforming talent and just not coming up clutch like how, the Cubs weren't all of 2016. So I think really it was just all about just underachieving and underperforming.
For sure. And I feel that too. And I guess, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, so I have an idea, I guess, of what your opinion on it will be. But as far as Joe Madden goes, I'm a huge Joe Madden guy, especially when he was with Tampa. I loved him there. Phenomenal guy. All the players seem to love him. So happy that he finally won one.
Oh, yeah.
So what was kind of the reaction that you see maybe from yourself or maybe, Cubs not social media, Cubs fans and stuff that you've seen with their reaction of Madden?
Well, actually, what's really funny is a lot of people actually wanted Joe gone from like the Cubs meeting and whatnot. And I think a lot of that's just, just panicking and, in the moment, like, okay, this team's not performing like how it was in 2015, 2016, whatnot. Since we're not there, oh, we got to get rid of everybody. And I don't think that was the case whatsoever. And it didn't need to be that way.
Right.
But I think, if you're going to spark any change, obviously you gotta do something, got to make a tough choice. And Joe was the scapegoat, unfortunately. And that was kind of that was that. And now he's off in LA, and I wish him nothing but the best, especially for, like, in my opinion, the best player in the world, Mike Trout. He's getting just the absolute best manager possible for his career anyway.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you touched on that too. As far as the Angels go, obviously Mike Trout hasn't been to the playoffs since I believe 2014, if I'm not mistaken. And he did a first round exit against Kansas City. So, he hasn't had a chance to prove himself in the postseason. Obviously, baseball is a very individual sport in some regards, but is a very team sport in other regards, as far as that, one player can't determine the outcome of how your team is going to be the whole season, as far as, like hockey or NBA goes. One player can impact a game. Baseball, one player can't impact it. They can to a certain degree, but not so much.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
So I'm really happy to have him go there. Hopefully we can see Mike Trout in the postseason, because it'll be a shame if we ever don't get to see him there again. And I think Joe Madden will be the perfect manager for that.
He's the one player that definitely deserves to see the commissioner's trophy at least before his career ends, because he's the best player in the world.
Absolutely.
And the fact that he hasn't even, like, sniffed, like, that, like, environment ever in his career is so criminal. But and just because he's never really been on, like, a really solid team.
Right. And it's unfortunate to see that, for sure.
Yeah.
So now the Cubs did hire a new manager, and that is David Ross. Now, from what I heard, David Ross, a fan favorite. Everybody loves the guy. What was your reaction when you got David Ross?
I love David Ross just because, like, when we had our World Series run, like, he was so amazing, because it was his swan song. It was his last year, so everyone fell in love with him. And what a way to go out being a champion. When he got hired, I'm like, okay, this is probably the best case scenario if we're get rid of Joe Madden, is get someone that the players know, because pretty much everyone on the Cubs right now, probably minus maybe 5-6 players, are on the World Series roster. So, and of course, David Ross was on the 2016 roster. So, I mean, I guess, might as well get someone that, you've been basically best friends with, basically like brothers.
Absolutely. So I guess this is another question. Do you have any concern that the players themselves will look at David Ross more as like a friend, and well, not to say that you should look at your manager as an enemy by any means, but like more as a friend, right, like a guy you want to hang out with on the weekend, versus a manager and this guy, like, he has an authoritative figure over us.
No, I get you. Like, I have that was my big fear with him getting hired was, okay, these guys these guys have created the bond of being a champion together, winning the World Series. Yeah. That can sometimes, like for example, like with, you and me being a part of, the UMAC Conference Championship teams for Bethany. Like, those guys are my brothers, like my teammates, and you helped us out along the way as well. That's a bond that is so special, and sometimes, that can get away from what you're trying to do, and that's try to win baseball games. And I think that's my big fear going into the year is, like, can David Ross actually manage a Cubs team, rather than, not alone playing with them, but, you get the point. Like,
right, for sure.
Yeah, like can he separate, pleasure from, being a manager? That's what I mean.
Right. Yeah, I got you for sure. I was curious, and I don't think it should be that much of an issue. I mean, I think the players with the Cubs have been around it for a little bit now, where I'm sure they know where to separate, the bro time versus the let's get serious time and wins a ball game. So I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. But,
right. Yeah.
So now I guess we can go into this current offseason, and it sounds like you want to kind of tear apart your Cubs. So I'm just going to give you the microphone and go ahead.
Well, the biggest thing that was the biggest just me wanting to throw my head into a wall so many freaking times was the move of Nick Castellanos going to Cincinnati, division rival Cincinnati Reds. Obviously, he was a ginormous contributor in him getting picked up at the deadline from Detroit. He contributed so much to our offense and lit a huge spark under us. Because I personally believe without Nick Castellanos, I don't think we were above 500 the whole rest of the year. That's how much of a spark he was. I forgot to get his stats, but I definitely know he was hitting over 300 in his tenure with the Cubs. That is a given. But yeah, no, he went to Cincinnati. Pedro Strop, setup man for the Cubs. He also went to Cincinnati. Actually, I have the list of all the players that left for free agency. So we have Nick Castellanos, Brandon Kinsler, Steve Cishek, Cole Hamels, Pedro Strop, Ben Zobrist, and Derek Holland. They all left for free agency, and that is a ginormous chunk. Yeah, and you and I know this pretty well as a joke, but that's all I have to say is that's all I have to say is just like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. No, I understand. That's got to be frustrating, especially a player like Castellanos. Now, me personally, everything that I heard before this offseason happened, that like, yeah, Castellanos was happy with the Cubs. He wants to come back. He wants to come back for the long haul. What do you think changed in regards to him wanting to be here, and then all of a sudden, well, he goes to the Reds now?
I think the biggest reason was just the fact that we really couldn't make any moves because of the fact that we had the whole Chris Bryant service time grievance scandal going on, and with that, with the MLBPA and stuff like that, we actually couldn't make moves like at all, and it was so frustrating. I think Castellanos just thought, okay, they're taking their sweet time, trying to give me a deal when I contributed so much last year. It should be a given. I should be, in contract talks with them. Never really have said anything, and they let him walk to Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating, especially too with a team like the Cubs that it seems like all of the time. A lot of times I like to compare them to the Yankees of the NL in regards to if there is a free agent player or a big name player, a lot of the times it seems like you hear the Cubs, Yankees, random other teams. It seems like the Cubs are always a team that is always in it. And for this offseason, for them to pretty much have all of their big name guys walk, that's got to be kind of concerning.
It's concerning for a lot of reasons, like because everyone when the Cubs started this big rebuild back in 2013 when we hired Theo, we hired Jed Hoyer, and they were and giving us all this hope and promise and whatnot, and they eventually did. We went out and got guys like Jason Hayward, drafted guys like Chris Bryant, and picked up guys like Anthony Rizzo and John Lester, and the rest is history with that. So when you see like this falling just out of nowhere, it makes you want to question your team. Like, okay, what is going on? Like in the locker room, front office, dugouts, like stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel that. So I guess as far as Chris Bryant goes, you've kind of mentioned his situation, but do you want to go more into depth about what that was all about?
So I guess the big thing with that was I actually didn't really read much into it until that grievance thing actually ended. So basically what happened was his rookie year, he wasn't on the opening day roster, believe it or not. He actually got called up 3 weeks after the season started. He ended up still winning rookie of the year that year. So what happened was he wanted a extra year of service time since he missed the 3 weeks. He's like, okay, it's 3 weeks of the season. It's not much. I played the rest of the year anyways. He wanted the extra year so he can go into free agency after this year. He lost the grievance thing with that, so technically he can't enter free agency until 2021. That was the big old thing. That's why we couldn't go out and get anybody and it was so stupid too because it's like, okay, Chris, you're not going to get this thing figured out because MLB won't let you have it. You have to be on the opening day roster to even consider it to be a full year.
Right. So does that you now, when he is a free agent, obviously with this dispute going back and forth, are you at all worried that Chris Bryant could potentially leave, or do you think he'll stay true to the Chicago Blue?
Well, actually, what's been funny, Dort, is the fact that they've actually been in talks of trading him.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, and obviously you saw the tweet I like jokingly tagged you in because I mentioned Nolan Arenado going to the Cubs. I bet you were just punching air while I
Uh-huh.
sent you that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there have been talks of him getting traded and questions if he's going to even be on the opening day roster March 31st. Questions if he's even going to be playing a full year this year, getting dealt the deadline. So yeah, it's a lot of questions in the air. I know a lot of reports are saying Bryant's not happy with the whole grievance scandal thing, but it's how MLBPA works, and it's an unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah. Well, if the Cubs were to pull off a trade with the Rockies and get my Nolan Arenado, how would you feel about that?
Well, I'd be pretty ecstatic. I mean, he is one of the best third basemen in baseball. I'm
One,
gonna say that. I mean,
one
huh?
of
What?
he's
I
he
knew
is.
you'd get upset by. I knew you'd get upset by that.
Oh man, let me
Every
get a
time
different
I met
here.
for the viewers watching, every time him and I talk about this, it is just never ending with who is better. Because obviously he's a Rockies fan, he's gonna think Nolan's better. I'm a Cubs fan, so I'm gonna think Chris is better. So it's never ending. I think the worst was when we were in Arizona and we were playing the show and debating it, and it was
Yeah,
World War III basically. It was
I
World
remember.
War III.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, I'll get fun.
No.
So obviously the off season, it's kind of wrapping up, if not kind of already is wrapped up. Is there any moves now that the Cubs, first off, maybe that you want the Cubs to make, or that's realistic that the Cubs might actually make?
Well, the most recent one that happened a few days ago, they got Jason Kipnis. They signed him on a minor league deal, which I think adds a lot of, obviously better veteran part to the team. But it's still in my opinion, it's one of our top prospects, job to lose, and that's Nico Horner. He was a September call up last year, and he's an absolute stud. And I think he's gonna have a breakout year if he makes the opening day roster. But we did get a few people like in like acquirees. Like we got Travis Lankins from Boston. He's a 25-year-old guy. He had 3.86 ERA last year in 23 and a third innings. And then we got a kid from the Dodgers, Casey Sadler. He had a 2.14 ERA, 31 strikeouts, and on 46 and a third innings pitched. So I mean, we added some of the bullpen, and that's been the big burning question: is if our bullpen can hold up. Because I'm pretty positive we led the league in blown saves last year,
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken. And that's even with the addition of Craig Kimbrell at the deadline last year. So I think that one of the burning questions is if the pitching can hold up.
Yeah, that's an important part. I did not know that the Cubs were that far up there in blown state. That's kind of crazy.
Uh,
So I
I'm
guess
I'm pretty positive. I'm pretty positive we were up there because I remember I think Kimbrel had like 7 blown saves before he got hurt, and that was just when he started his tenure with the Cubs. But yeah, no, a team ERA we had last year. We had a 4.10 team ERA last year as a whole.
it was not for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess going to next season, who are some players that maybe fans don't know about that you know about that are must watches to look forward to for the season for the Chicago Cubs?
Well, the first one, like how I mentioned, I think Nico Horner. He's one of our top prospects. He's a middle infielder. And then I think, well, I mean, a lot of people know who he is, but I think he's gonna have a breakout year if he gets a chance to be in the lineup. It's Ian Happ.
Mm,
He was one of the guys that I think it was my freshman year. He led off the 2018 MLB season with a dawn against the Marlins, and that was on ESPN. That in case you didn't know who he was, if you've ever followed it or whatever. But other than that, I think it's mostly still all core guys, really. I mean, obviously Baez is special to watch. You still got Bryant, you still got Rizzo. and you still got Hayward, and you still even got Albert Almora and Wilson Contreras. So I think that, I mean, like I said, it's not really more. It's just more of just the core guys are still there, and those are pretty much the two guys I can think of that probably, if you don't know them, watch out.
So Kyle Schwarber, that is also a name that obviously is brought up.
Yes.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, do you think this is a guy that the Cubs have to keep for the long haul, or do you think they should trade him?
Well, I mean, you're talking about the kid that led the Cubs last year in total home runs. He had 38 last year, and the only problem is he was only hitting like 245, I think, last year. So I mean, it's a hit or miss with him because you can tell he's not an outfielder.
Right.
Like when we drafted him out of Oklahoma, out of Indiana, excuse me, he was a catcher.
Okay. Yeah.
And obviously, Wilson Contreras, in my opinion, a top five catcher in baseball, in my opinion. Uh, obviously, there's a few above him. Obviously, I'm not going to be that biased. But yeah, they were like, okay, this is going to be Wilson's spot pretty much till he pretty much dies, apparently. So it's like, okay, we're either going to trade you or you're going to go to the outfield. And he wanted to be a Cub, so he morphed into the outfield. And his fielding's not too bad, but he's definitely not someone I would still trust in
For
the
sure.
outfield.
That makes sense. So now, I guess preview to next season. Do you expect the Cubs to be good? Do you expect them to compete again for another division title, or do you think they're going to take another step back?
When you look at their roster and you see guys obviously like Baez, Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber, Jason Hayward, all those guys, you're thinking, okay, they got some talent. Then look at their starting pitching. You got Kyle Hendricks, Hugh Darvish, John Lester, Jose Quintana, and your boy Tyler Chatwood. Thank you so much for him.
Anytime.
um, yeah. So I mean, when you look at the roster, it's like, okay, you know, they they look like they can compete, but when you see them, like especially last year, as on and off as they were last year, and it's pretty much the same team as last year, you just don't know. And especially now with the new manager and David Ross, who's had no managerial experience whatsoever, you want them to succeed, but I guess it's just one of those things where you just don't know, if you know what I mean.
Yep. So if you're making a prediction, where are they going to finish in the division?
Right now, I'm going to give Cincinnati probably. I think Cincinnati wins the NL Central this year just by all the moves they made, all the talent that they have, and whatnot. I don't think Milwaukee has. I think Milwaukee and the Cubs are kind of like in the pecking order of like who gets second or third. It would be nice, and this is realistic. This is probably me being realistic because every Cub fan's like, oh, we're still going to win the division, stuff like that. And I'm like, that'd be nice, and if we can, great, But if not, realistically, I think it's going to be about second or third place, fighting for a wild card spot. I have them at about 89, 90 wins, and I
Okay.
think that's about realistically. I think that's where they can go. But who knows? Maybe I mean I think it was like 2015. I only had them winning like 75 games, and they ended up pushing for the wild card. So
You never know. Baseball's a crazy game, that's for sure.
baseball is a very, very, very weird game, and it's coming from someone like me. Yeah, it's a very weird game.
Uh, Um, I'm kind of with you too. I think the Cubs, after last season, definitely a huge step back, kind of a disappointment. I think they'll be competing for the division. If they don't, I don't think I think I can say that they will be one of the two wild cards, and I feel fairly confident with that. Um, Now, granted, they have lost some guys. Obviously Castellanos being probably the big name guy
the
that they
big,
did lose. Um,
the big one.
Yep, for sure. And but I don't think that'll hurt them as much. I think they'll be competing for a wild card at the very least. I think at the very most, I think they're competing for a division. I don't think they're out of the playoffs so next year. But I have been wrong before, and I'm sure I probably will be wrong again in the future. But we'll have to see.
We're all wrong at some point, but yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be a weird year because, like I said, I personally believe the National League is up for grabs. Really, I mean, if you really think about it, I think it's is probably about as wide open as it's probably. I mean, obviously with the Dodgers, you're probably thinking, oh, they added Mookie Betts and whatever, and I've said it forever. I said you can add whatever you want. If you're not winning a World Series title next year, I don't know what else to say. Like you won 106 games last year and you were the World Series favorites, and I think they lost in what? The division series?
Yep.
I think they lost in the first round. Like I said, yeah. I mean, obviously you're probably thinking, oh, he's crazy because it's the Dodgers. Well, the Dodgers are really good. I go, just watch the Dodgers in October. And I've always said that with everybody. And I said it last year too. I was like, oh, the Dodgers are going to go to the World Series. I said, watch them in October, and well, look what happened.
Every year.
So yeah, I think the NL is wide open. I, American League, obviously, I think the whole thing with Houston, obviously, I think Houston, still competes, but I don't think they're going to be as good. Obviously, we'll see what they do without the whole cheating aspect and code breaker thing or whatnot.
Right. That'll be
So yeah,
interesting.
I don't know. It's gonna be a very exciting year. I think it's gonna be a very exciting baseball year.
Yeah, like you said, wide open. I think we're going to see teams that we haven't seen compete in a while potentially compete for something big. So that'll be exciting to watch for sure.
Oh yeah.
So I guess the show's kind of gone quick, but we've covered a lot of topics in this short amount of time. Is there anything else? What was that?
I said we move quick.
We do.
Move very, very quick.
As far as the Cubs go, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, bring up with them at all?
Well, it's gonna be a huge test this year. I'm very excited for David Ross to see what he does, but at the same time, I'm also scared. Crapless. I'm keeping it PG for you. So I don't know. The bullpen is still the biggest concern for me. I have a lot of faith, obviously, in Baez and Rizzo and company with the offense. If they can stay hot, they're some of the best talents in baseball. And I think, like I said, it's the bullpen that scares me so much. Even with Craig Kimbrell and company, and then now losing Pedro Strop, I think it's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be a weird year. And if they somehow do something with this, I'm going to be all for it. And like I said, it's just going to be decision time because obviously all season long it's going to be, should we trade Chris Bryant? Should we deal some other guys? Should we, buy or sell depending on the position that they're in? It's going to be a wild ride, and I'm ready for it.
Well, it's a true fan right there. I will tell you this much, though, coming from a Rockies fan, you can have all the hitting in the world, but if you don't have any pitching, you ain't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, and the thing is too is like our rotation is there. Like we have a very solid rotation. I'm not sold on Chatwood being a starter. I've said that forever. Unless he started to figure it out last year. He was actually really good he had a really good second half last year. But like I said, our projected starter rotation right now, it's Kyle Hendricks, Hugh Darvish, John Lester, Jose Quintana, and then, of course, I mentioned Tyler Chatwood. So, you look at that, it's like, okay, I think it's going to be solid. Darvish had a very good year last year compared to his first year with the Cubs. And, of course, Kyle Hendricks has always been slept on just because he's not one of those pitchers that, throws 95 plus and whatever, but, he throws high 80s, low 90s, and has a changeup that just falls off the table. He's always been stellar for us. And then of course John Lester. Well, what can you say? That's that's the ace right there. So entering, I think, year 17. He's been in the league for a while.
Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah.
AKA the guy that gave up the hit up the middle to Tony Walters, seal the game for the Rockies. But that's neither here nor there, but continue.
All right, Dort, listen. Listen. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. Then, yeah, so we got Jose Quintana, got him from the White Sox in 2017 from the deadline. He's been stellar for us. It's another solid lefty we have. Yeah, we actually, right now, I think Chapman's a lefty, isn't he? I'm pretty positive he is. Or he's a righty.
I believe a righty, yeah.
Yeah, I believe he's righty. I was going to say, because if he's a lefty, 3 of our 5 starters are lefties. It's actually saying something. But anyway, yeah. I guess, yeah, like I said, it's just gonna be weird to see who's on the opening day roster, and obviously Chris Bryant's gonna be there, but I think the burning question is if he's gonna still be there when he's when it's game 162.
Well, hopefully for your sake he is, because if he's not in that lineup, that's gonna be tough for sure.
I mean, and everyone was like saying that he was always on the decline and stuff like that, like with his shoulder injury he had in 2018, and then last year he actually played really well. He was starting to get back to his his MVP numbers from 2016, which is always still a debate, but the wins above replacements what made him win that. Like that's the statistic that makes or breaks if you win the MVP or not.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, that's that. I mean, now we can kind of get into some fun stuff to talk about as far as favorites go. So first we'll start off. Who is maybe your favorite Cubs player of all time?
Oh man, my favorite Cubs player. Well, normally I usually say Rizzo because it's just because I love Rizzo as a person. But if I had to say all time, I would have to say probably Alfonso Soriano. When his tenure with the Cubs, everybody loved Alfonso Soriano.
Yeah.
It's either it's either him or Carlos Zambrano. Big Z.
Oh, Big Z, yeah, baby. Oh yeah.
If you want to talk the definition of pitchers who rake, that is your definition of pitchers who rake right there. Oh, I was pulling for him so bad because he wanted to be in the home run derby so bad, and like in his tenure with the Cubs, and it's like just put him in there. It'd be freaking awesome.
That's awesome. Now, who is your all-time favorite Major League Baseball player? Now, it can be a Cubs player, or it can be somebody on a different team.
All time?
Yep.
Probably got to go with the kid. Got to go with Ken Griffey Jr.
Fair.
Yeah, I have to go with Ken Griffey. He's in my opinion one of the best outfielders to ever play, and one of the best anyway. And just his swing is one of the sweetest swings I've ever seen in my life. And then of course seeing it live, like how I said earlier in the show, where it was my first Cubs game and he hit 2 home runs, and just seeing it like 15 rows back, just the sweetest swing you will ever see in baseball. I don't think anyone will ever duplicate his swing.
Absolutely. That's super cool. What is your all-time favorite? So we're going to separate these two. So your all-time favorite, just baseball memory from like you playing in general, and then we'll do your all-time favorite, just Major League Baseball memory.
Well, the Major League Baseball memory is pretty simple. Cubs winning the World Series, Game 7 in Cleveland. That's a given. Favorite baseball memory, like as a player.
Sure.
Oh man. I got way too many of these. If I had to say, I'd probably have to say freshman year, college, when we won our very first conference championship tournament, going to the NCAA regional. I think that was special because it was just a special group of people.
Absolutely.
Like myself, Kevin Harris, Ross, Nick, John Brown, all of them. Just a very special group. People I still am in contact with today, and that's how special that team was.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. That's for me personally, and I wasn't even a player on the team, and that was a phenomenal memory for myself as well too. Super, super cool. Well, that's all the stuff that I have to talk about. Is there anything else that you want to bring up at all?
Surprised you haven't mentioned anything about my Patriots losing in the wild card. But
Hey,
we're talking about baseball. We're
this is a
talking about
baseball
baseball.
strictly podcast. We'll get that to another
Yeah,
day.
I know. I know. Yeah. It's been. I'm excited for obviously my college team and whatnot, going out to Arizona, going to get some playing time. So that'll be fun. But I'm more excited for Major League Baseball too. So
Absolutely.
like I said, it's an exciting time, even though the weather here right now is about almost minus 25.
I don't miss
Yeah,
that. That's for sure.
yeah, I can't imagine what it's like in Colorado right now.
Well, it's snowing a little. It's been snowing these past few weeks, but not that cold. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's about minus 20 right now. It's supposed to feel like minus 40 by about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Oh, man, I hate
So, but of course, Bethany, will be like, "Oh, we're still gonna have class." Yeah,
that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
you know. Just as don't worry, we'll get our cars starting in minus 40-degree weather.
Oh
Get our,
man.
get our college education going. We paid a lot of money for this.
Absolutely. So is there anywhere that if people want to try and follow you, maybe talk some smack, talk some baseball, where can they find you at?
All right. So my Twitter, it's all lowercase. It's at Austin Jensen 21. Same with my Instagram, the exact same thing at Austin Jensen 21. And then if you want to add me on Snap, add me on Snap. I made it in seventh grade, so do not judge me. It's all lowercase. It's at hockeyman_88. And I'm pretty sure you can recognize my face. We've had 40 minutes to recognize my face. So
Yep,
if you find me on Facebook, it's Austin Jensen, and it's a goofy kid in a Bethany Vikings baseball uniform. So
there you go.
can't be too hard to find.
Absolutely. Well, Austin, I want to thank you for coming on. I hope you had a good time.
Oh, I had fun time, man. It was good seeing you, man. It's been a long
Awesome.
time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you gotta come back to Cato.
I'll be there soon. I'll be there
Well,
soon.
when the weather gets better, it's not minus 40 out.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Don't
sure.
want to do that to yourself.
But that's all the stuff, like I mentioned, we have to talk about. If you want to find myself at Twitter, you can find me at Lucas_Dorton, capital L, capital D. If you want to find Nick Doetkott on Twitter, it's at Doetkott, Doetkott. Definitely, if you like what you heard, let us know. If you didn't like what you heard, let us know. We'll try and fix it to get it better. Definitely spread the word, get us out there, and you know, one view at a time. That's all you can do. But as for
Hope it
my
takes off for you, brother.
absolutely,
Yeah.
uh, as for myself and Austin Jensen, we are out.
Have a